And here's where we have to be careful, and this is why I'm coming to represent the heart of God. I very little listen to the news, and I do it on purpose. Because when I do hear people talk against, for example, the president, they're speaking impeachment, I hear the Lord laughing, because that's not God's idea, nor is it his agenda. And God reveals his news through his prophets. Amos 3:7. He does nothing in the earth unless he reveals his secrets to his servants, the prophets. But the enemy, though, uses the airwaves. He's the prince of the power of the air. So the enemy, how does he? He has to have prophets. He has to have the local media, the national, international media, voice what his agenda is. Now he's trying to get us to agree with impeachment. He's trying to get us to come against this president that happens to be God's plan, God's man, for a mission of mercy that he's trying to show the church that right now you've got a friend of Israel, you've got a friend of the church. Paul prayed, let the door of the gospel remain open. This president is a friend of you, Christian. Oh, but he's immoral. But listen, do not be quick to judge, because they had tried to impeach Moses, but yet Moses was God's choice and God's man to rescue and deliver a nation, and the same is true. But here's what the enemy's trying to do. Get people to agree with hearsay. So I want to share a revelation of what God is saying. Here's what God said on New Year's, because I don't want you to fear about Iran. I don't want you to think there's a warmonger. We've got 4 horns, just like Zechariah 4, that are trying to rise up. And if we don't pray, and if we don't get the right president, which I believe is Trump, it's God's man for this next election, we're going to be faced with 4 horns. Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China. And they will rise up to be enemies. But God has anointed this president to strip them of their power. And what the enemy wants to do to preempt a war for World War III. But here's what God says. A retaliation shall arise through this president to those in other nations who think that they can bring and afflict fear and harm. They shall say, he's but a warmonger, hungry for war. But God says, do not be fooled. For I'm going to show you the strength and the power of what I'm going to do to raise you up even greater, United States, that your enemies will begin to fear the name United States again. Do not fear retaliation when you see it before your eyes, but watch what I do in the place of the Middle East. Those who have opposed will be removed.
You have a vision starting at 2020 for the next decade. Actually, if it went a little longer, tell us some of the things you've seen.
Yes, February 12th of 2019, God showed me a vision that went into 12 years. And he said, Hank, I can't show you beyond this because your spirit cannot handle beyond this. And he said, the reason it's 12 years is because I've come to set things in order in the earth should I choose to tarry. And here's what I saw, some of the things. First of all, he said there will be 2 specific signs to reveal great awakenings. And this will begin to happen. He said protests and power outages. And we've already seen since that word fulfilled power outages as a sign that the places that are going to experience these power outages are going to be significant. For those that sit in darkness are going to see a great light. Talking about light, he talked about how there's going to come inventions of light that have to do with medical cures. Medical cures, watch, it's coming for children, especially in the area of cancers. There are major medical breakthroughs that are going to come out of Israel. The Lord's going to show us how simple this has been. And
no wonder the devil's trying to destroy Israel.
Yes, that's right. Well, because Israel is where the Lord brought the original balm of Gilead, the healing balm from Israel. It's going to happen again out of Israel. Major medical discoveries that won't be held up through bureaucracy because of just the evidence that's coming. One of the other things I saw is the Lord bringing land rest. And in fact, I was watching the weatherman. They were talking about how they were prognosticating all these hurricanes. And all of a sudden, the hurricanes didn't happen. And they were saying, what is going on? And God said in the vision, this is because I have given the land rest. And I said in the vision, I said, well, how can this be possible? Don't you understand, God, all of the evil? And the Lord said, listen, I raised up a man, Joseph, a righteous man under a king or a ruler, Pharaoh, who did not know the Lord or honor the Lord. Yet I gave the land rest because of Joseph. This is what's coming upon the United States, and it's what's coming upon the earth. Rest. And the other thing we're going to see, God said this, and in every decade, okay, there's always something significant that happens in every decade. You know, music, or maybe, you know, like the hippie movement or something like that. This decade, God said, has been given to and for the children. That's why there's going to be major breakthroughs regarding childhood diseases and things that have plagued this generation. The things that we've seen regarding certain cancers, Alzheimer's, diabetes are going to be known, watch this now, as sicknesses of the past. This is how much God is going to let it rain upon the just and the unjust. The Lord's desire is 3 elections to raise up His plan that He wants to cover a recompense movement. Okay, pay attention to the words. The trumpet has to sound. I just heard it, recompense. Recompense. But the trumpet has to sound louder for a while to expose corruption. That's one of the things that we're going to see is major corruption. In fact, Putin is going to get restless in Russia, but God's going to cage him. China's going to try to come to the aid of North Korea, but they're going to have so many of their own issues in their economy and protests that are going to arise. Asia Minor is going to become Asia Major, outbreakings. The underground church is about to arise as the bamboo curtain comes down. The veil that's been over the Middle East, there's going to be major movements of people gathering in the Middle East, even in the United States, especially among the children. But in the Middle East, watch the areas of the pyramids. And the president at the time of this happens in Egypt, is going to allow these protests, not protests, but gatherings of worship where the areas of the pyramids are, and they're going to say, Yeshua, Yeshua, Yeshua. This is going to happen. Major difference of music is going to start coming out of the nations. A different sound in worship and praise is going to begin to take place. Supreme Court vacancies. I mean, it's going to seem like one after another, it's going to start happening. And there is yet, God has not yet pulled the covers back, but there is a major exposing that is coming at a very high level that will even touch the Supreme Court. That will be part of the reason why vacancies will take place. But there are coming rulings like 8-1, 6-3, 7-2, and it's going to shock people because we're getting judges righteous as the first.
Why does he find himself doing it? It's not politics. It's not because of politics. With this video, you will discover why. There's something, if you have a certain kind of heritage, there's a drive within you. Watch this video and listen to the story that the man tells in this video. Watch.
There was a great revival in the Hebrides in the early 1900s. Began to moved up to the pleading for it into the 40s. Maybe we could say it topped out in the early 50s. 2 old women, one was 84 years old and one was 82 years old. One was blind and one was humped over so badly with spinal stenosis just arched over. But they had passion for revival. They wanted God to work. This is what happened. They couldn't even get out to the church to pray. They couldn't even get out to the church to worship. Their house became a place to meet. People came in. They got so passionate about revival coming to their isle, the Isle of Lewis. They got so passionate about it. They confronted the preacher and wanted to know if he was thoroughly right with God. And they prayed and prayed and prayed. And they'd seen the Lord, they said, with the church filled up and God blessing, a great overflow. And the fire of God struck that tiny little obscure place off the coast of Scotland. And when it happened, there was a young teenage boy that got saved in it. His name was Donald. And the preacher became so dependent upon Donald and so close to Donald, he would ask him to lead in public prayers and help him with the meetings, and he did. Oh, how God worked. People began to hear about it, and the revival fire spread. It spread. And God blessed in a great way. Those 2 old women, the people, kind of people don't want in their church anymore. And from that same island, there was a young girl who was a cousin to Donald Smith, who immigrated to America. Her name was Marianne Smith McLeod. She came to America in 1936. She met a man named Fred, and they were married. They fell in love. They were married. God blessed in a great way. And those old women were her aunts. And they came out of that fiery revival, They really experienced revival. And they sent a Bible, a copy of the Word of God that had been used in a special way in that revival, to Marianne. She started having children. I think it was 1937 she had her first child. They named him after his father, Fred. Then she had her second child, named after herself, Marianne. Then she had her third child, Elizabeth. Then she had her fourth child. And she was so impacted by this teenage boy God had used in that revival of the Hebrides. She named him Donald. And she gave him that Bible, the Hebrides Revival Bible. He was born in 1946. He's now the 45th President of the United States. And that Revival Bible is in the Oval Office. I'm saying to you, I don't know how, why, I don't know how it all comes together. But I believe God is putting some things together to give us just a window. If he could find some open people who know what the window's for. Can this be the time the window's open? Providentially, God has prepared the moment, and we will become the people of prayer, pleading with God. This is a plea.